Welcome again. Welcome back.
We're back.
Hi.
Epic week. We had a lag and we recorded two, not one, but two podcasts this week. So
It's a
we
new
are on a
record for us.
roll. Yes, we're back in it.
Absolutely. And today we have a very special guest again.
Very special guest.
We have Miss Elise Sinha from the Sinha group. I'm going to let you introduce yourself, but both Mary and I know you, love you, respect you, and are so honored to have you join us
Yes.
today. So over to you. Introduce yourself. Tell us about your wonderful work and how everyone can get to know you as we chat in the next few minutes.
Sure. Well, thank you, Shannon and Mary, for having me. Also, two of my favorite people. So I feel like this is such a fun coffee chat that I have with you regularly. So my name is Elise Sinha, and I'm the CEO of the Sinha Group. The Sinha Group is a coaching and consulting business in Connecticut. And I am a certified coach who specializes in coaching women who are in various levels of leadership roles, looking to have the most purpose of the work they do, looking for career transitions or sometimes in a career transition that they didn't expect, but helping women especially move forward to a place where they have their purpose, they feel balance, they feel reward for the work that they do. And it is such a joy to do this work. I also do small coaching circles, which is my way of helping women build community post-pandemic. We know that there's an epidemic of loneliness, and the pandemic made it so much worse. So my hope is by putting small groups of like-minded women together and going through an 8-week process that they come out bonded and those relationships continue after our coaching circles. I do retreats. I do a lot of consulting, mostly with nonprofits and universities around DISC assessments and 360 feedback tools and team building, strategic planning, high performing teams, all of those kinds of works is what I do. This is an evolution from 30 years in healthcare in various levels of leadership skills, starting from being at the bedside as a respiratory therapist, which to this day is still the most important and impactful job that I ever did, all the way up to an executive running large scale initiatives, including COVID operations for one of the largest healthcare systems in the state of Connecticut and New England. So very proud of the work I did and was ready to go at the time that I left and could not be happier in the space that I am now because I get to meet wonderful people like Shannon and Mary.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is perfect.
Yeah,
You-
amazing tee up.
You framed
Yeah.
everything up. So today's topic is really about evolution of work. How do we view work through each of the generations? How work has shifted. I mean, you touched upon it a
Yes.
little bit post-COVID. What does leadership and career expectations look like now, and what's the same, what's different through the generations, and I think how maybe each generation perceives work
Yeah.
in all of the iterations.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I talk a little bit about sort of the onset of coaching, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
how that's become a little bit more mainstream, or
Accessible.
certainly in my career lifetime, from when I started to now, I think there's more openness to it and all of the good things. So that's what we're going to unpack with you today, Elise, and we're so excited for
I
this
know.
conversation.
I can't wait.
And in full disclosure, I think it's worth saying I had the benefit of working with you as a coach for several weeks in the spring during a transition. And I think maybe we could talk a little bit about some of that. And because it speaks exactly to what you said, which is it was a tool that was available to me that 5 years prior might not have been.
Yep.
You know, like that was a resource I could call upon during a transitional moment that a lot of people never had until now in this really unique world we're in and where the needs are so different and the wants and the
Yes.
things that the modern, particularly female professional are looking for are different and have evolved. And so it's really such a fascinating conversation. So let's jump in. Let's
Yep.
start with what you teed up. Like maybe how have things fundamentally changed through your lens and the work you do now versus the work you did prior? You know, how are people's relationship with work changing?
Yeah, so different, and such a great evolution from my perspective. You know, I remember starting out in the workforce, and the philosophy was you work as hard as you can, and you take every opportunity that's given to you. You create a path, and you work hard to achieve that path, right? And I think this concept of work-life balance did not exist, especially in a boomer-centric environment, right? That the work is the work, that's your identity. That's how you define yourself. That you are a steward of the organization in all facets, right? There was a loyalty thing. People stayed in jobs for they'd start in the same job that they ended their career in. So it was a whole different philosophy. And it's been really cool to see, especially over the last few years, this fundamental shift that my life is more than my work. My work is important and work fulfills me and it provides for my needs and wants, etc. But it's not my whole being anymore, right? Shannon, I love your story. I mean, it just resonates with this conversation so much. You were in a leadership position, you were overseas, and when you came back and had to make a decision about how to move forward, you went through this process of determining, well, what does bring me joy?
Right.
And what fills my cup? What fills my soul, right? And there were Legos and there were
A lot of Legos.
a lot of Legos and parrots and creative writing and
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
all these
And
branches
podcast.
and
And
podcasts.
podcasting.
Yes, and
Yeah.
podcasts. What a beautiful thing that I was
Yeah.
honored to witness and help
Oh,
lead
thank
you
you.
through as you discovered who you were and what
Right.
you wanted out of your career. And it wasn't necessarily finding the same job in a new place
No.
or going to the next level, or
Right.
staying on that path. And I think w- women especially, this is a new space for us of what do I want from my life? What does bring me joy and purpose? What is the balance that I want to have? And what are the other facets of my life that are as important? Like that is new. And I think
Yeah.
that's really exciting. Right.
Yeah.
And, we're
Yeah.
not at a place where everybody has that luxury yet. There are a lot of
Right.
women who still, they have to be in jobs they don't necessarily love. Sometimes they have to work multiple jobs. And there's an inequity piece there that I want to make sure we acknowledge in this
Yeah.
conversation, because this conversation will lend itself towards privilege, right? So I want to make sure we're being
Right.
really, really cognizant of the idea of privilege here. But
Yeah.
with that being
Yeah.
said, even the idea of coaching was something that has been around for men, for people who had the wherewithal, or frankly, people that were in trouble, right?
Right.
Or
Right.
or had some deficits. This idea of proactive coaching, first of all, women investing financial dollars in themselves for their growth and development, that's new. And that's still hard for a lot of women, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
To say,
Yeah.
okay, I am worthy of taking some family financial resources and applying them to myself. Like that's new. And I spend a lot of time talking to prospective clients about, I can't possibly spend that kind of money on myself. And then, the why nots. So I think we're in this cool evolution period of taking our careers as one segment of who we are, and then also investing in ourselves in a multitude of different ways, taking a course, getting a certification, getting a coach, whatever it is, right? Taking a writing class, buying Lego, right, all those things.
Yeah.
It's a very exciting time.
Where in your exposure to so many different types of professionals, like generational. So,
Hmm.
I mean, and maybe you are particularly dialed into a certain generation of people, or maybe you see a good spread. Like, where are you seeing maybe different challenges? So, take myself, right? I had a certain unique set of considerations,
Yeah.
right? Young family, financial need, I'm not nearing retirement, like very different conversation than someone who might be at that later stage, or maybe even someone younger who's just lost out of school. You're like, what are you seeing? Are there general themes across the generational divides?
Yeah, and this is such a great, timely question for me because this week I had just a great privilege to facilitate a workshop with a nonprofit that I work with and kind of talking about these things. And, I would say my work is mostly with Millennials, Gen X, and boomers. I don't do a whole lot with Gen Z right now, and that's okay. Where I see the changes is the boomers are kind of holding on to that boomer mindset, right? That sense of, I've worked here for so long and this is my identity. This is who I am. And my work is my work defines who I am, right? And starting to question that. And I have several clients who are making the decision to move towards retirement. And that is especially difficult for my boomer clients because that identity is so closely tied to their work, right? With my Gen X, and I am a Gen X myself, it's very different. We are now looking at, hey, I've been doing what my parents told me to do and moving through a certain way, and I'm not having it anymore, right? I want something different. I want more flexibility. I want to be able to adapt my skills and stretch myself differently. I want to move out of this box that I have or that I've created for myself, right? And I don't have a ton of millennials, but my millennials are so much about growth and so much about taking risks and challenging the status quo. And I mean, I don't want to say bucking the system, but their their personal time is they're defiant and protective of their personal time in a way that a boomer could never be,
Right.
right?
So in a way, maybe they're going to be the disruptors or are the emerging disruptors.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I think so very much. Because they're the ones that are saying, I can get more productivity done at home, right? Whereas some of the older generations are like, but we can't connect if we're not in a room together.
Right.
And I don't know what the right answer is there. I don't. I truly don't. There's a case to be made for both, but it's so interesting to see, even just in that one thing, where we do our work. There's such there's
Yeah. I would imagine too, in some of the organizational clients that you're working with some of the organizational leaders, helping them navigate the things that they're navigating organizationally. We are in a unique time where we have four generations in a workplace.
yes.
So I worked in an organization, full disclosure,
Yep.
that you also support, where we had that very
Yes.
real situation of four generations in a workplace, all committed to the same mission and goal, and how that showed up, and figuring out the ways of working was a challenge. So I don't know, can you speak to any of that from your experience? Like, what are you seeing? How do you coach organization, or what tools can leaders use when they're trying to, work through managing effective ways of working across the generations?
Yeah. And I'm just smiling because we really just did have a lot of these conversations. So it's so
I'm
timely.
sure.
Well, there's perceptions, right? About emotional maturity and investment in the organization and how we interact and communicate and how much we give of ourselves. And there's conflict. There's conflict on that, right? Our boomers are all about, I am in. And I don't mean to generalize, but just to get the point across between the generations.
What we do here. It's fun.
Yes, yes. That I'm in it to win it. And if it means I have to work every weekend and 100 hours and all the things, like that's what it means to be a good employee. Well, if you try and say that to a Gen Z, the answer is I'm out of here, right? Because they have a different, I'm trying to figure out the right words. Like they have very strong boundaries, really strong boundaries around protecting their time, protecting their peace, not getting overly emotionally involved.
Yeah.
Right. And they're the ones that are going to question, well, why? Why not? How come? What do you mean? Right. So there is a skill set that's needed for organizations that have all four of those in there, which are many, right? Of how you, first of all, you you work to understand instead of judge. Oh, I mean, how many times have we heard, oh, those Gen Zs, they're so lazy. They'd rather be on a
Yeah.
ski slope than doing their hard work, right? And that's just not the case.
That's not true from
Versus,
what I
what's that?
it's not true from what I
Yeah,
see with my colleagues, and even with my children who are Gen Z
yeah,
and in the workplace.
yeah,
Yeah.
That's
yeah. It's not accurate. But it's so they're the way they come at it, and to some extent, the Gen X or I'm sorry, the millennials, come
mhm,
at it from this is a part of my life. It's not my whole life.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that the more our leaders can understand the different generations and create mechanisms, communication mechanisms, collaboration mechanisms, be thoughtful about structures that you put into place that are not just the structures that we've always had, but structures that meet these different sets of values, right? It needs to be
It's funny,
purposeful.
like one of the things that came to my mind just as you were talking about it is this, and you've probably heard this in various phrasings over your interactions. There was, as the DEI movements got a lot more prominent and visible in the last decade and a half, 2 decades, really, there was that push for, bringing your whole self to work, right? Which in other words is making sure that you have an organization that allows for the safety, for an employee to feel safe to be who they are. And I think, and there's almost a what I've observed is there's this odd like slap back to that. So companies are saying, many of them are performatively saying so, unfortunately,
Hmm.
they're not actually meaning it, bring your full self to work. Okay, but we don't like that part of you just brought, right? So
Hmm.
there's that reality. But let's say in a beautiful, ideal organization and who has really mastered that, creating of a psychologically safe environment, you have a Gen Zer and to some degree, I think millennials who come in and say, I do. I want you to recognize me as a whole being who has a life outside of this place, but that doesn't give you access to every part of me. And I think that's like the nuance between the generations. Like maybe some Gen Xers and Boomers, they say those words and they say, "Oh, we're all in. That means you have me. I'm lock and key. I'm here for you." And this is a agreement that we've signed together. But I think the younger generations are like, no, that's not what I'm surrendering. I'm not like giving up my whole being. Yeah, to have a transactional relationship with you. And I think I had a coworker just on that point who said to me many years ago, and it has never left my brain. She said it a little cynically, but I think very wisely. She's like, never forget that this is a transactional dynamic you have with the company. In the end of the day, you perform a service for them and they pay you for it. And that's it. So like it can be easy to see all of the other things and get caught up in all of the emotional components and social stuff. But that's at the end of the day what it is. And I feel like there's a real wisdom in that maybe the younger generations get
Yes.
in a way that the older ones have forgotten or never
so they ever
experienced.
thought framed it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I can tell you my own personal experience. I got caught up in that. I
Yeah,
was a very, very top performer. I won the top leadership award at my organization. A year
yeah,
later, there was such financial upheaval as a result of the pandemic that my division was obliterated and I was let go.
right.
And I can't tell you how personally devastating that was to me
Of course.
because it wasn't transactional for me. It was
Right,
I had
right.
such loyalty and such pride, and
Yeah,
it was my family, it was my community, it was my everything, right?
yeah,
And,
yeah,
that's real for the older generations, right? That's what we
yeah,
were brought up in.
yeah,
You work hard and you're a good steward and you're going to be taken care of. And
yeah.
that may have been the case 30 years
Many,
ago. It is not the case today. It is a transactional
no,
relationship. Your words are perfect. Transactional
yeah,
relationship. And the sooner
yeah.
that the older generations understand that, the better off they're going to be.
Yeah. Yeah. To be clear, I also got caught up in it, and I had the
Sure.
same experience you just described. But I think there's a wisdom in that, like the ability to zoom out.
Yep.
It actually it helped me, I think, move quicker through it, was
Yeah.
anchoring back
Mhm.
to this isn't personal. They still did view me as a high value person. And none of that changes reality. Just it's still a transaction.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and
Yeah.
so two things can exist at once. I think that, but that can be difficult, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we're all human beings, right?
Yeah.
And we spend so much time at work,
So
whether
much.
that's in
Yeah.
person or remote or hybrid, whatever, that you are going to create relationships and care
Of
about
course.
people, and it is a community. So
Yeah.
that's just the reality of being human,
Yeah.
right? But I think
Yeah.
being able to frame, and I think that's where the younger generations have a healthier relationship
Yeah.
with work, is that they can frame it a little transactional and they're not afraid to make a move.
Right.
Right.
Right? So they change. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
All the different careers, the changes that the younger generation is happening or embarking on or will have through the course of their
Right.
career
Sure.
versus you kind of did one job or one
Yeah,
place
and you
and
were
that
in
was
it.
it.
Yeah.
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 So sure. You know, that
Could you help navigate people through that
I do.
process, right? A little bit. Yeah.
A lot. That is kind of the cornerstone of most of my work, is that career transition, whatever it may be, up the ladder, down the ladder, across ladders, you know, a whole different jungle gym or onto retirement,
Right.
right? Could be any of those things.
Yeah.
But the concept of longevity, that meaning has changed. Longevity was a really good thing way back when. It's not so much now, right?
Right.
And the expectation for longevity is no longer part of that success plan. And I can tell you from my perspective, let me give you like a clinician, so a nurse, a respiratory therapist, a physical therapist. So during the pandemic and subsequently, there was such a shortage, especially of nursing. Let's just call out nursing. So many nurses retired, got burnt out, left, whatever, said I can't do this anymore. And there was such a shortage that organizations were giving these massive sign-on bonuses if a nurse would come work with them. And what we saw happening was a nurse would come to hospital system A and
Yeah.
get their big bonus and stay for the required amount of time.
Yeah.
And then hospital system B over here is offering an even bigger bonus. So as soon as they were able to, they left and went to hospital B and stayed, got that bonus and stayed for the duration. And then, oh, hospital C over here is offering a nice bonus. I'm just going to go there. Now that's an extreme case, right? Of lack of longevity being a motivator, right? And, you know, not many other industries had a situation similar to that I know of, but it just shows you that the motivators for these younger professionals coming in is far different,
Yeah.
right? And
I mean, even I think about the dynamics when I've applied for jobs in the last 20 years, you know, and watch my friends and peers, and there's this like juxtaposition of I started at a point where organizations still had a pretty traditional point of view on that. You know, I came out of college and it was like find a good place, put in a few good years, then you move on, then you really got to lock in. You know,
yes,
I remember questions in my early interviews like, can we expect to see you here in 5 to 7 years? You're like, and it's like, but that was part and parcel. Like that was normal then, even only 20 years ago. But then I started to see my friends who maybe were a little more risk taking than like they would jump. Or if their industry allowed it, like agency world is very, very jumpy. And that's how you made more money. And so at some point, 8 or 9 years into my career, I remember being like, I'm the idiot. Like I'm sitting here putting in all this time at places where I'm making chump change, killing myself. For what? Like watching all my peers ascend, learn new things, change cities and jobs and learn because they just decided that was a bunch of bullshit, that whole thing. And now I'm like a huge advocate for people jumping because I've now sat on the other side of that inside companies, even companies that have a reputation of being a place where people go for a career, where I've had leaders next to me going through org changes and making judgment calls based on that person, they've been in the same role for 10 years. That we don't want a sitter. We don't want someone who just plants.
yes,
We want movers and shakers. We want people who come and like sometimes people say it and don't mean it because there's a risk in both sides. But I think there's been a real sea change in some of that,
yes,
a lot of places. And particularly within me, like you started out as like the no, you're in it for life type thing. Now I'm like, no way. Get
yeah,
as much experience, meet as many people, make as much money as you want. Like, who cares? It's your happiness. But I think you have to get there first.
And just beyond the money too, because also what I'm
Sure.
hearing you say is that people developed broader network
Huge.
and experiences
Yeah,
they want to otherwise have available to them. I
absolutely.
know at least when you and I chat about your evolution, that's one thing that you have said was a silver lining is just how your network and your
Oh
world
my
opened up. And
gosh. I mean,
Yeah.
so I had the kind of the unique privilege of living in both worlds of longevity, right? So when you look at my resume, it shows you that I was at Hartford Healthcare for 28 years, which is unheard of these days.
Right.
But
Right.
within that, I was given tremendous opportunities to work. I was a caregiver in an ICU at a hospital. I was a respiratory therapist. And then I was an organizational development consultant over here. And then I was the manager of two big clinical areas over here. And then I was asked to go to IT and help set up electronic health records over here. And
Yeah.
wow.
then I did that. And then I left and I went and I set up a new clinical infrastructure, completely different. And then I was asked to be the director of the project management organization. And then I became the executive operational excellence, right? So within that 28 years in one organization, I had multiple careers in different parts of the
Yeah.
organization, right? That were not associated with each other.
Hmm.
I'm so proud and grateful that I was given those opportunities. Who goes from being a bedside clinician to running a massive IT integration team?
Yeah.
Like it just,
Well,
at
Yeah,
least
yeah.
Sinha,
You.
yes, but it just
you.
doesn't happen really. So, in that sense, I had the luxury of living in both worlds. I kept the loyalty of
Yeah.
the organization, but moved
Yeah.
and moved and moved and grew and changed and got raises and got changes in salaries and all of those things,
Right.
right? That concept of staying in one place and being that plant. I love that analogy. You know, we don't want
Yeah.
to plant is so interesting for me because my clients, they're feeling like plants, right? They come to me and they're like, I've been doing this job. I'm really good at it. I know all the ins and outs. I have huge, community, and I'll get back to the community piece, but I'm ready for something different. And for some people, that's a scary thought. For
Yeah.
some people, it's like, yeah, it's time for me to go and I'm going. And I've had
Right.
people who have done 8 weeks with me. They were stuck for some reason. We worked through it. And then boom, within weeks, they had a new job in a new area with big money, whatever. Right.
Mm.
But I have other people who are like, I want to do something different, but there's so many things that are holding me back. I'm in my comfort zone. I don't want to get out of my comfort zone. So
Yeah.
that is real between the different generations.
Yeah.
I mean, at least full transparency. Like I know, like some of our coffee chats, I'm like, I want a career change, but I'm too old.
Yeah.
Like it's too late.
Yeah.
And you're like,
And
no,
you're
it's
not. You're not.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's our I say all the time our brains are assholes. Our minds are
yep.
assholes, right? They want to protect us. They want to keep us safe. They want to keep us comfortable, right? So our,
Right.
our minds are assholes, and I do a lot of work on our asshole minds. I do. I do. It's a lot of what I
You
spend my
too.
time.
I spent a lot of time in mine.
Yeah,
It's great.
uh-huh. Yeah, we did some heavy
Yeah.
work on your asshole mind. Yeah, I mean that's what it
Yeah.
comes down to. Is I say it all the time. You can do anything you want. You just have to manage your mind. I mean, I think back on it. How did I go from being a staff respiratory therapist to running a massive IT to running an enterprise project management, doing the whole work to acquire um, a whole new hospital in a whole new region, and then running COVID operations, right? I never in a million years when I was bedside did I think I would do any of those or be the CEO of my
Right.
own company, right? It's that
Right.
managing your
Right.
mind. But I do want
Yeah.
to get back to your comment about community and networks.
Yeah.
In my 28 years, I thought I had the best network. I knew everybody there. I knew all the ins and outs, all the channels, all the people, all the everything. And when I left, that was one of the scariest things for me. But
Mm.
today, I will tell you that my network has gone from this small window to just massive avenues of people, of colleagues, of collaborators, of connections, of clients. It is unbelievable to me how big my network has become just by getting out there and changing the work that I do and
Yeah.
putting myself out there. But I think inherently, that's what the younger generations are really good at doing. I think they
Some
understand.
are they? So that
Yeah, that's
I
a
was
good
just
thing.
gonna I was thinking about that because as you're talking about, and I totally agree, like the networking thing is terrifying when you're in a company a long time
Uh-huh.
to leave that safety net of people and familiarity and but it is very freeing to then enter into all these new spaces. However, I wonder because I, as a millennial and a introvert, hate with a deep passion networking. It's more of like, as introverts have to do, like you have to acquire the skills to survive in an extroverted world. And so I'm okay at it now. I don't enjoy it. For me, it is work. It is a part of working and it stresses me out. However, it's like a means to an end in the way I see it. And then I look at Gen Z and I look at the younger kids below them even who have this issue, this challenge of hyperconnection, but also disconnection with the human to human piece. And will traditional networking, as you and I and we know it, joining chambers, creating little wine and dine groups and this and that and Lego clubs and all that, will that resonate with the generations up and coming
Yeah.
who they don't that's not how they prioritize their connection. They're connected, but in different ways. Like, how are you seeing any evidence of how that shift is occurring?
Absolutely. So when I say that it's easier for the Gen Zs and the millennials, here's my frame of reference. So yes, you're an introvert and it is not your favorite thing to do.
No.
But when you needed to
By the
do
way,
it,
it's my
Yeah,
favorite
she
thing
loves
to
it.
do. I
yes,
love it.
yes. Whereas
It fills my
Mary,
cup.
I hate
And
it.
I connect all these people and I love
yes,
it.
Mary, it's her sweet spot. It's her happy place, right? If
Yeah.
she's alone too much, she's probably twitchy, right? But here's the thing, you inherently know how to do it. You know
Yeah.
what needs to happen because the spaces that you grew up in demanded that, right?
Right.
Think about a boomer at the end of their career who worked at the same company 40 years with the same
Mhm.
people. Now, ask them to go out and network and build a new professional community. So hard, so not in their realm. And I'm general. And again, I really
Yeah,
hate to
yeah.
generalize, but we're generalizing here. In some ways, millennials and Gen Zs are built for this a little bit differently.
Yeah, there's something in our DNA that
Yes. But
prepared us differently for it.
and now I will say the generations coming behind them, whole nother set of issues. They are the COVID
Right.
kids, right? They're the
Yeah.
ones like, my kids were in grade 6, 7, 8 during the pandemic, that critical period of social development, right? And I
Yeah.
see how hard it is, right? I
Yeah.
see how, I call it damaged, right?
Yeah.
Damaged and having to make up for losing out on that very important time. So I'm not talking about them. There's a whole different story there.
Okay. Yeah,
Research
yeah,
is
yeah.
just coming out about what is
Yeah.
the impact
Yeah.
for
We're not
them
gonna
going to
know
be.
for a while.
Not gonna
Yeah.
know for a while.
Yeah.
But I will say, Shannon, back this back to your kind of observation around Gen Zers. Of my colleagues that are
Yeah.
Gen Zs, and it's a all remote workplace, they are wanting and craving
That's
connection.
great. Oh, that doesn't surprise me.
They
Yeah.
want to be with people, they want to co-create and collaborate.
That's
Mhm.
great.
But maybe it's just like the nature of the work that we're
Yeah,
in.
yeah.
Oh, Mary, like let me know when there's a chamber event. Like we'd love to go and work in the room.
Right.
Not just like
That's
kind of
great
standing
then.
there.
I hope they prove my observation wrong.
Just
Yeah.
weird things like they don't really like to talk on the phone.
The phone is terrible.
Or would rather just have this conversation via email, which drives me crazy
Yep.
because my Gen Xer, I was like, we can really just bang this out in like a 5-minute conversation
Yes.
instead of monitoring like 6,000
Just
email chains.
the whole concept of communication vehicles and what works
Yeah.
best by generations is
Yeah.
so fascinating. So,
It
so
is.
fascinating. We've
It is.
become an email, instant message, texting society. And
Yeah.
those of us in the older generations are craving those pick up the phone and have a conversation or meet for a cup of
Yeah.
coffee. Whereas those younger generations legit don't know how to do that, right? Like I my my
I find it very overwhelming because we can have one topic that's being communicated across multiple
Yes. Yeah.
platforms
yes.
or multiple modes of conversation,
Yeah.
and like context gets lost.
Yes.
Where we are in the process gets lost. I really struggle with
Yeah.
it. I acknowledge it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it'll take time because there's an efficiency mythology in there. I think like it's more efficient to just, it's not because so much is lost. And if you zoom out and look at it and say, did we actually gain time by trying to solve this asynchronously via, IM or email? No, because it went on for so long versus the 20-minute meeting had you just convened once and done. But in the process of accommodating for all of these generations' preferences and for modernizing the workforce and to being a company that has all of this tech, like I think there is so much option and availability for everyone, for all the generations. And until either generations are sunsetted or decisions are made about this as primary form of comms, like it's going to be like
It's
that.
just the natural
Yeah.
progress of ways of working, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, and I think it's funny because as you say that, I'm thinking about this collaborative that I just am coming out of that I've been working on for the last I don't know, 7 or 8 months. We put a book out and it was a collaborative effort. There was each woman wrote a different chapter. And through that process, we got so stuck in all of those communication vehicles. The
Oh,
flow of
interesting.
information. Is it in an email? Was it on a Zoom call? Is it in the Slack channel? Is it in the Google Docs? Where is it? Like, and at the company that I was with earlier this week, I don't know. Is it in the team's global chat? Is it in the team's channel chat? Is
Yep.
it in a text? Is it
Yep.
an email? Is it in the SharePoint repository?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know where to find anything because there's so
The
many
answer, by the
ways.
way, is it's always on someone's private desktop.
Yes, yes, right?
That's always,
Yes.
Oh, I forgot to upload it
Yeah,
as a
right?
thing.
Yes,
An extrovert Mary does not have time looking. Gets
yes,
very frustrated with wasting time
yes.
trying to find it.
yes.
Like I got things to do.
It's such a reality, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just want to touch before we wrap about coaching again. So, because we opened with that as being one of those things that is newish. It's new to the masses, let's
Yes,
say.
yes,
And to your point, it is a privilege. Not everyone has that luxury, but it is 150% more accessible today than it was probably even 10 years ago. I know so many people just in my network who've left roles similar to your story, Elise, and have stepped into this as a career for
yeah,
themselves because the need is there. I think what you said it earlier that I always kind of giggle about is before I experienced the benefits of coaching myself, I did have a stigma attached to it of you get coaching when you are in need of remediation, when you are being rehabbed. This is your last chance before you get pipped. This
yep,
is
yep,
it had been this storyline in my head and realizing that no, yes, that is sometimes used and sometimes the case, but not at all the reality
right.
that I experienced and what it served me.
Well,
So,
and I would even say as an organizational leader, we've actually provided coaching to emerging leaders,
which is
like to
great.
help them.
And that already is a
Yeah.
change
Yes,
because how value, and I don't know, maybe at least you could speak to this a little. I don't know if you've ever been on the receiving end of that, someone who's been more or less told to seek coaching versus someone who's showing up
yes,
saying, I really want this. I need this. Like, have you had that
yes.
experience? Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I've had all the experiences. So I've had
Yeah.
people come to me and say, I'm not happy where I am, or I have this goal and I need help achieving it. Like that's the golden client, right? Because
Sure.
they're invested, they know the value, they sought out, they were proactive about it.
Yeah.
I've had the client whose boss said, we are going to give you coaching as your last ditch effort
Yeah.
because it's not working. Right. And
Right.
that's a whole different kind of coaching and that's a whole different environment.
Mm.
It's stressful. It's not genuine in that the client didn't seek it out. They were told to
Right.
do it. And
Right.
then what I'm having more and more of in my business anyways is companies saying we are going through a time of transition. We're going through a time of heavy change. Or I have a couple clients that I want to invest in because I see their future in this organization, or I want
Yeah.
them to get ready for this next promotion that's coming. And working with organizations and their clients that way. Or, I want to invest in this team over here, and I want
Hmm.
them to learn how to work better together. So it's a disc assessment, and then it's followed up
Right.
by coaching afterwards. A
Right.
lot of that. That's really where my emerging business is coming in. And what's great about that is not only is it a change in how people view one-on-one coaching, but how businesses are looking at
Yeah.
coaching, right? Is
Yes.
it's an essential tool for their succession planning and for their operational excellence. It's a critical tool for their change management as they go through
Yeah.
reorgs and transitions and acquisitions or downsizing or whatever.
Right.
That's what's been really exciting in the coaching space. But even, I have not been doing this full time for very long, but in the beginning, I spent a lot of time talking to potential clients on why investing yourself and paying someone to coach you is important and worth it, is worthwhile.
Hmm.
And I don't really do that anymore. I don't need to be in that space. The people that
Yeah.
come to me are like, yep, I know the investment, but I also know what I want out of this investment. Or, I need this, I want this, I'm invested in this, and I am willing to make some changes in order to get this. Because the other piece that people are now learning is that you can come to a coach and you can say, I need help in my career. But we are not single faceted, right? So I
Right.
cannot tell you one of my many clients that I've only talked to them about their career, because what's going on at home, what's going on internally, what's going on with family dynamics, what's going on with the world around us, they're all intertwined. They are not
Right.
single entities in a person's life. I have a great story of a client that came to me who was such a high performer, such a consummate leader, was not getting the promotions that she had been promised or told or strung along, whatever you want to say. And we met for a couple of times, and I let her just talk and open up and go through things. And it wasn't until the fourth session that she said, I guess we probably need to talk about something that's going on personally. And it was something about her ability to conceive, to have a baby,
Yeah.
to start a family, that kind of stuff. Once we got into that, and we maybe spent 3 sessions working through that, everything changed and opened up in her career space. And honest to God, within a month, she had a new job that paid twice as much, had the better title, had the better benefits, all the things. And she went on her way.
Yeah.
Those are some of my favorite experiences. They were short. She didn't need to be coached for a year and a half. There was something blocking her. We got to
Yeah.
it. It had nothing to do with work. And that was a very big surprise to her. But then we were able
Yeah.
to move forward. I think more and more people are seeing that connection between their personal lives and their career lives and all the ways that they impact each other.
And I think it's a shift too in the mindset of what Shannon touched upon a little bit. Like, oh, coaching, game, I need help. There's a deficit to coaching. Like, I'm ready to make a change and I need some support or a thought partner
Yeah.
Right.
to get me through this process. I think that's a very fundamental shift in
Yeah.
how we view.
And I have a hard time saying it's a coincidence that this is sort of happening in parallel as you see, you know, therapy and mental health becoming far more mainstream and the prioritizing mental health becoming something that's very, very common. And so, I mean, my experience with you, Elise, felt a lot like therapy because we talked very little about work itself. It was to your story you just shared. Like it was surprising to me actually. And I think I actually paused my own therapy while you and I were working because it was going to be too much because there was so much crossover that I was like, all right, I'm just going to lean into this though, because obviously this is having impact on my professional, realm. And so it's not, I guess it's not a coincidence
No.
that these things are happening societally, where people are prioritizing very different things and willing to invest time in a mental health professional and a professional coach because they're not all that different, to be honest. Like, I think what the end goal is getting someone in the direction they want and need to be going, and that
Yes.
feels right to that moment.
So I will say most of my clients have a therapist as well as a coach. Just from a
Yeah.
professional disclaimer, I just need to
Yes.
say that I am not a therapist and I am
No,
not a
No.
mental health
sorry. Didn't mean
provider.
that.
No, no, no. The difference is that therapists and mental health providers, they help you deal with what happened in the past. Right?
Mm,
Coaches take where you are today and maybe understand what happened in the past, but we move forward. We are all about
yeah.
creating going forward, but we are
Right.
not trained and we are not equipped
Oh,
to go back in time and help with
yeah.
all of that.
I'll say
And
that.
Yeah.
I say that not only as a disclaimer, but also as a caution, because coaching right now is an unregulated space. It's an
Yeah.
unregulated space. So the plus is there are many different kinds of coaches. There are spiritual coaches, there are career coaches, there are leadership coaches, there are well-being coaches. That you name it, there's
Yeah.
a coach for that, right?
Yeah.
And there's a million different certifications. But because it's unregulated, there are also people who think that they can go back and do what is a therapist or a mental health professional's role. And I am a
Right.
very strong advocate that
Mm,
we take you where you are and help you move forward. We do not go back in time. We
no,
understand
it's a
what
really good call
happened,
out.
right? And I think,
Yeah.
and hopefully, Shannon, from your experience, that's exactly what we did.
Exactly what we
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was different. It was like same but different work. There
Right.
was so many parallels and threads, but what you really helped me do was chart a map forward.
Yes.
And it was very freeing. I think it really got me through that transition moment because it was pragmatic in a way that sometimes traditional therapy is not always. A lot
Mhm.
of time it's not about, like, it's just the processing or it's
Yeah.
intellectualizing. This was very like, here's what we're going to do next. Here's how we're going to talk about what you want, what you need, put it on paper. There was something really just tactile about it
Yes.
that was
Yes.
really good. And I think that's probably why people love it so much,
Yeah.
is because as a professional, you want to have something in your hand.
Well, probably for Elise's clients who probably tend to be like producers,
Right.
like getting
Hmm.
things done.
High output
Yeah.
people.
So as we wrap up, I think, thank you for really
Yeah.
clarifying, and particularly around the space of
Yeah.
coaching, right? Because I hadn't
Yeah.
even thought about
No, it's a
graduation.
great
So
point.
could you, as we wrap up, maybe talk about some tips on how somebody that is looking for coaching in all its iterations, maybe vet a professional that is qualified and, suitable
Yeah.
from
So
perspective.
yes, you want to have a coach who is certified in some kind of coaching. And again, there are coaching schools and programs all over the place. There is in the International Coaching Federation. So that's something to keep in mind, that there is a professional organization. It's separate from the coaching schools, but that's something to consider. And some large businesses do, leverage the International Coaching Federation. And you also want to interview coaches. When I interview and when I meet with clients, I'm really looking for fit. And I think Shannon can attest to this, is I never let anybody sign with me during their initial conversation, because I need them to go back and think about it. Am I the right fit for you? Am
Right.
I qualified, or did you get from me a sense that I could help you achieve your goals? I
Right.
tell people all the time who are on the fence, here's some names of some other people. Talk, other coaches, talk to them. And sometimes
Right.
I'll say, it really sounds like what you're talking about is much more spiritual, or it sounds to me like you have our significant trauma. And I am trauma informed, but I am not a trauma certified coach. And I would rather
Right.
somebody with that situation go to someone who's a certified trauma coach, right?
Right.
So for me, it is the fit is what matters most of all, and the connection between the client and the coach. So do your homework,
Yeah.
and don't be
Yeah.
afraid. I do not let people sign on the dotted line on our first visit, because it is a
Of course.
very big commitment and it is an emotional journey. And you
Yep.
need to be in a place that you feel safe and supported. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's great. Well, Elise, thank you
Thank
for
you,
unpacking
Elise.
work through the generations
Yes.
and your wonderful insights as always. Thank you.
Thank
So great.
you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Of course. And we'll put in our show notes and how people can find you and reach out to you if they're interested to learn
Thank you.
more about what you offer and all about your wonderful journey. So thank you again.
Thanks, Elise.
Thank you. My pleasure.
We'll see everyone soon.